This is the lecture video 597 through 607, Progressive Era, Chapter 21. The Progressive Era is a great time in American history for change. It shapes America today, and it reshapes the nation as a whole. People actually get a say. Businesses and major companies and even the government get a lot of resistance from the people, and the progressive era in its totality changes and moves us forward as a society. The three progressive presidents that we're going to talk about throughout these next three lecture videos are Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson. The origins of progressivism lay in this new industrial urban order as Americans begin to question the responsibilities of government and themselves for the betterment of people. People are living terribly, as we've talked about before. The discrepancy between the rich and the poor is astronomical. And by 1900, prosperity is returning and easing the threat of social violence, but it's there still. And who's going to help out the ones that can't help themselves? Underlying problems included companies getting even bigger and bigger and bigger, buying out through horizontal and vertical integration. Working conditions and social problems connected to immigration all have things there. Remember, people are working basically their whole lives away without being able to enjoy life at all. Here are some of the major progressive organizations and groups that we're either going to talk about or we have talked about already. So please keep these in mind as they will be crucial to the test. Reform-minded ministers launched what was known as the social gospel movement to try to promote religious ethics to industrial conditions to alleviate poverty, slums, and the exploitation of workers. So if everybody acts in their minds in a good, kind, Christian way, society will work out better. But we all know that's not ever going to happen. People are out for themselves. They're there to make money. The chief business of business is to make money. We've had this conversation before. Businesses can say they're there to support and help others, but if they're not making money, they're not going to do that. And then in ushers, journalists looking for the social ills of society. They are nicknamed muckrakers by Theodore Roosevelt because they're raking the muck or the bottom of the barrel and reporting things and publishing exposés of the things that people in society are doing wrong and taking advantages of people. The most famous one was Upton Sinclair, who wrote The Jungle, all about the meatpacking industry. And if you remember, I talked about that in class. Business leaders supported order, organization, and efficiency, especially scientific management ideas of Frederick Taylor. Everything down to the minute. And that's super important. And we've learned that today in business. There is a right way and wrong way to do things. And if you do the right way and you do the right steps in the right order, things get done more effectively. Workers form unions to pursue the social and economic reforms that span this large spectrum of conservative wage increases to the super radical. We have the International Workers of the World. We also have, from prior chapters, the American Federation of Labor. And it's just these organizations try to help, but some of them go too far, too liberal. Some of them, aka radical. Some of them super conservative and only want a little bit, and therefore they're not asking for enough, so therefore their unions aren't successful. Women are of growing importance, especially in the workplace. The growth of women's clubs and the creation of other organizations by women showed the growing activism of women for reform and equal rights. They are there protesting for their right to vote when African American men get the right to vote. And they do not get it. And so from then on, they continue to promote different things, including women's right to vote. That goes all the way back to Seneca Falls with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. European ideas and practices are a major source of American progressive movement, and we talked about those in class, how some of the new ideas that come over from Europe are used, at least partially, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. One of them is socialism. The growing influence of socialism promoted progressivism, helping out everybody across the nation by making programs for everybody. Reformers increasingly examine socialist criticism of industrial society about how it needs to be fair for all of the workers. Eugene Debs, which we'll talk about at length, for running on the tickets for president, founds the Socialist Party of America in 1901. But most progressives believe socialist ideas are too drastic. And we will use a lot of socialist ideas in American politics, especially during to get us out of the Great Depression, used by FDR. At that point, those are needed. At this point, I agree with the standard of America that they are too drastic at this point. Protestant fundamentalists stressed personal salvation over social reform. So fundamentalists or religious conservatives, or if you want to call them the Bible thumpers, and again, I'm not choosing a side in this at all, but they attack business interests and labor unions and resist government reforms. The business interests are. But the Protestant fundamentalists want people to worry about themselves. And if everybody worries about themselves and their personal salvation, then in turn, society will be reformed and things will be better. Because if you have a personal salvation, then therefore you will help out others and things will get better. All right, reforming society. Settlement houses are a spearhead for social reform. We talked about this before, but we're going to hit it on the head again. Largely modeled after the Hull House in Chicago. And it was founded by... Yep, you better be able to fill in the blank because I told you to remember that. Reformers created 400 of these settlement houses that were mostly led and staffed by young middle-class women, and they are going to help out tremendously. But please, please, please remember Hull House, Chicago, and the lady who founded Hull House. Settlement workers tried to help immigrants adjust to American society. They campaigned for housing reforms, better sanitation systems, parks, and laws to protect women and children. Remember, there are no sanitation reforms at this point. Central Park is not in existence yet. The land that Central Park sits on is worth billions of dollars, yet a park is needed in a city that massive. They need green area. And then laws to protect women and children from working conditions as well as husbands. Major laws and constitutional amendments of the Progressive Era, all the way from 1901, with the New York Tenement House Law for safety and sanitation of houses in New York City, all the way to the 19th Amendment, which established women's suffrage. And again, all these are super important. And that's where we pick up for the next reading. So this has been the reading 597 through 607.